I want you to just I want you to imagine for a second your absolute favorite soft, cuddly preschool cartoon character.
Oh boy.
Like, think back to the one you grew up with,
Yeah.
the character that taught you how to share or maybe how to count to 10.
Right, the really safe ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to imagine that exact same character being suddenly aged up into a teenager.
Which is already a leap.
Huge leap. And not just an ordinary teenager, but one who is suddenly thrust into this, like, gritty, high-stakes world of high school drama, supernatural hunters, and a literal physiological ticking clock where their life is on the line.
It's a massive tonal whiplash. I mean, you're talking about taking intellectual property designed to teach like basic friendship skills to toddlers and re-engineering it into a story about fighting for sheer survival.
Yeah, and that is the wild journey we are getting into today. So welcome to today's deep dive, where we are unpacking the fascinating world of Vampirina, Teenage Vampire.
It's quite a title.
It is, and we've gathered a massive stack of sources for you today. We are pulling from deep-cut fan wikis, some seriously intense Reddit discussions.
Oh, the Reddit threads are wild for this one.
They really are. Plus, we've got YouTube transcripts from channels like Series Central and the Review Season, and a highly detailed industry strategic evaluation document that really outlines the corporate mechanics behind this show.
Yeah, the cross-section of information here is incredibly revealing because, we're looking at both the creative narrative choices on screen and the cold, hard economic realities operating behind the scenes.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack the business and narrative strategy behind taking a beloved preschool property, aging it up into a multi-camera live-action tween sitcom, and exploring how the single show somehow ended up carrying the weight of a decades-long shared television universe.
It's a heavy burden for one show.
It really is. But to understand how we got here, we have to look at the glow-up strategy first.
Yeah, so the strategic evaluation document refers to this specific move as a demography-driven IP transition.
Wow. Okay, that sounds incredibly corporate.
Right. It sounds like clinical boardroom jargon. But it actually describes a really fascinating phenomenon in modern media. It's where intellectual properties are systematically optimized to capture progressive age brackets.
Oh, okay.
So if we trace the history, this property originally started as the Vampirina Ballerina picture books written by Anne Maria Pace.
Right, I remember those.
Yeah, and from there, creator Chris Nee adapted it into a 3D animated show for Disney Junior, and that was squarely aimed at 2 to 7-year-olds.
Super young demographic.
Exactly. That animated iteration ran for 3 seasons, wrapping up in 2021. But today, it exists as a live-action show developed by Randy Barnes, and it's targeting a 9 to 16-year-old demographic.
So they essentially took a blue-skinned animated preschool vampire and turned her into a 13-year-old live-action high school freshman navigating Wilson Hall Academy of the Arts in the human world.
That's exactly what they did.
But wait, I'm stuck on something here. It's like taking the training wheels off a bike and, slapping rocket boosters on it.
That's a great way to put it.
But if you have a massive audience of toddlers who love a show and recognize a character, aren't you essentially setting millions of dollars on fire by changing the entire tone of the property? Like, why take the risk of alienating that core audience instead of just starting from scratch with a brand new concept?
Well, see, that is the crucial question. But the strategic rationale is not about abandoning the original viewers. It's entirely about capturing those aging original viewers.
Oh, the ones who grew up.
Right. The kids who watched the animated show in 2018 when they were 4 or 5, they are now the exact tween demographic this new live-action show is targeting.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, the studio doesn't want to lose that built-in brand loyalty just because the audience grew out of preschool content.
Oh, I see. So it's less like a standard television reboot and more like updating the operating system on your phone?
Yes.
You are keeping the main interface the user is already comfortable with, like the characters they know, but you are quietly swapping out the background code to handle much heavier, more complex applications.
That is a perfect way to look at it. But to make that operating system update work, the entire narrative architecture had to change. I mean, what scares a 4-year-old is fundamentally different from what scares a 14-year-old.
Very true.
In the original cartoon, Vee's vampire identity was just a mild family secret. She lived in relative safety next to human neighbors who quickly figured it out without much consequence.
It was cute, you know.
But it was cute.
Yeah.
But for the live-action adaptation, the stakes had to become life or death to hold a teenager's attention. She must actively conceal her nature from classmate hunters. And this shift required overhauling the core characters, too. Take her dad, Boris, for example.
Yeah, I was reading through the character breakdowns, and Boris got a major personality rewrite.
He had to. I mean, in the animated series, Boris was supportive, warm, and highly adaptive to human society.
Your little goofball dad.
Exactly. But in the live-action series, the production notes show he was intentionally rewritten to be an intensely overprotective father who heavily restricts her activities.
Right.
He goes so far as to send Demi, who is a 600-year-old ghost, to live with her in the human world as a chaperone.
Which creates that classic adolescent domestic tension. It grounds the fantasy elements in very relatable teenage frustration.
Totally.
Because it's not just like, oh, monsters are real. It's, my dad is embarrassing me and won't let me live my life.
Exactly. It creates a dual layer of conflict. She is fighting external supernatural threats, but she is also fighting for independence from her parents.
And speaking of those external threats, we have to talk about the tension at this boarding school.
Yeah.
The entire social dynamic is built around who knows Vee's secret and who might actually want to end her.
The stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah, you have her human roommate, Sophie Choi, who is a nervous DJ prodigy. And then you have Vee's major crush, Elijah Summers.
Right. And the writers use these relationships to escalate the stakes incredibly well. It moves past standard high school drama about fitting in and turns into a literal game of survival.
Nowhere is that clearer than in episode 3, First Dance. Looking at the breakdown of this episode, the tension is just masterfully constructed.
It really is.
So Vee and Elijah are at the welcome dance. They're having this great moment. They do a romantic dip on the dance floor, and right in that split second, Vee spots an engraving on Elijah's ring. And it says VH.
Van Helsing.
Yes. He is from a historical family of vampire hunters. But what makes it so brilliant is that in that exact same moment, because of their proximity, Elijah realizes that she is a vampire.
Yeah, it's a simultaneous high-stakes reveal.
She's wild.
And the mechanics of that scene introduce a massive complication for the rest of the season. They have these developing feelings for each other, but the sources reveal that Elijah's oldest sister, Mariah, is a substitute teacher at the school.
Oh, man.
And a literal vampire slayer.
That is so stressful.
It is. However, the external threat of the Van Helsing family isn't actually the most pressing danger Vee faces.
Right, and here's where the storytelling gets incredibly dark for a tween sitcom. The biggest threat is an internal physiological one. It's a concept the show introduces called fritzing.
Yeah, the strategic documents highlight fritzing as the primary narrative engine driving the first season. Because Vee is isolated from other vampires at this human boarding school, her powers become deeply unstable. She actually begins to physically deteriorate.
And the examples of this fritzing are wild. Like in episode 11, First Vampire Friend, a severe fritz causes Vee to literally knock out one of her own fangs.
Right on the floor.
Yeah, and her rival, Brittany, finds the fang, accidentally scratches herself with it, and temporarily transforms into a vampire alter ego named Tiger Girl.
Which forces Sophie and Elijah to frantically brew an antidote to cure Brittany before sunrise.
Yeah.
It turns a physical symptom into a full-blown crisis.
Then it gets even more extreme in episode 12, First Heartbeat. A botched magic spell meant to help her actually turns Vee fully human.
That episode is so interesting.
It really is. She starts experiencing terrifying human vulnerabilities. Like she starts sweating in the sun, she realizes she has a beating heart, and my absolute favorite detail, she suddenly develops an intense craving for garlic bread.
It is a really clever comedic way to explore hidden identity. But structurally, fritzing establishes a season-long ticking clock.
Right, and think about how smart this is from a writing perspective. They are using supernatural fritzing as an allegory for a chronic illness or even severe adolescent anxiety.
Oh, absolutely.
Your body is changing, it's doing things you can't control, and it's betraying you in front of your peers. Dr. Lugosi literally gives her a medical diagnosis. He says if she can't stabilize her condition, she has to leave the school and return to Transylvania permanently.
It gives a very real, tangible weight to every choice she makes.
It really does.
And it forces her to find a solution that bridges her two worlds, human and vampire. Which brings us to the core mechanism she uses to cure this condition.
Yes, the show's primary hook, which is the music.
It's exactly. The resolution to this physiological crisis arrives in the final 2 episodes of the season, First Villain and First Full Vampire. The narrative introduces a new character, an ancient Transylvanian vampire named Lucien Constantine, who is freed from a mirror.
Right. And Lucian has a very specific and highly toxic way of surviving in the human world. He feeds on negative human arguments. He thrives on conflict and drama.
Yeah, he represents a totally parasitic approach to survival. But V rejects this completely. She refuses to drain people through negativity.
Good for her.
Right. Instead, she discovers that she can stabilize her fritzing by feeding on the positive energy of crowds during her pop performances.
That is such a cool twist.
It is. It is a process of vampiric draining, but inverted to be symbiotic.
Hmm.
The audience gets a great concert, and she gets the life force she needs to stabilize her powers.
Which means the music in this show isn't just a fun marketing gimmick to sell soundtracks. It is the literal mechanism keeping the main character alive. And this is where the casting process had to be absolutely brutal. Reading through the production notes, casting directors Amber Horn and Amber Offiero had an incredibly specific challenge. We actually need to talk about what multi-camera live action really means because it changes everything.
Yeah, a multi-camera format is essentially shooting a sitcom like a stage play. You have multiple cameras running simultaneously, often in front of a live studio audience, or at least paced for one.
Right, so you can't just fix a bad performance with clever editing.
No, you can't.
The actors need impeccable comedic timing. They have to hit their marks perfectly. Andy, for this show, they needed kids who could deliver professional-grade live vocal performances on top of the acting.
And they found a very capable ensemble to handle that pressure. Kenzie Richardson, who plays V, really carries the musical weight of the show.
She is incredibly talented.
She really is. She belts out the opening theme song, SLAY, which perfectly encapsulates her dual identity as a pop star and a vampire.
And Sean Dixon, who plays Elijah, gets this incredible moment performing a hip-hop track called Cypher in an underground rap battle.
Yeah, the tracks they perform, like Supernatural, which is written within the show by V and Sophie, they serve as narrative tools. They bridge the gap between humans and monsters, proving they can create something powerful together.
It's awesome. But, V's fight to survive high school through her music is intense on screen. But the irony here is that the show's actual creators were fighting a much darker survival battle off-camera in the real-world television industry.
Yes, and this brings us to the shared universe integration. Disney-branded television has a long-standing corporate strategy of linking its live-action sitcoms.
Which fans love.
Oh, they eat it up. And Vampirina Teenage Vampire formally establishes its place in this massive universe during episode 12, First Heartbeat.
We love a good crossover episode.
We really do. So the character Billy Russo, played by Janice Leanne Brown, crosses over from the series Wizards Beyond Waverly Place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The episode reveals that V and Billy actually know each other from a location called Camp Creepy Lake.
Which is a great name.
Right, and this serves as a direct canonical bridge between the wizarding world of Waverly Place and the Vampire Society of Transylvania.
Now, as a viewer, that just feels like a really fun Easter egg, but the industry sources point out that this shared universe is actually a massive, heavy burden for this specific show. Why has a fun cameo suddenly become a corporate liability?
Well, to understand the burden, you really have to look at the staggering scope of this shared continuity. Because of how these shows have intertwined over the years, Vampirina is now canonically connected to historic legacy shows.
Like what?
We're talking about so Raven, Hannah Montana, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and Bunked.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it is part of a massive multi-generational web of intellectual property.
That is a lot of history resting on the shoulders of one freshman comedy.
It is. And the reason it is resting entirely on Vampirina right now is due to an economic reality that industry analysts are calling the great live-action purge of 2026.
The purge. Okay, what exactly happened there?
So there has been a massive contraction in youth programming recently. We mentioned multi-camera series earlier, right?
Yeah.
Well, the production costs for this format are rising rapidly. When you add in the high music licensing and original songwriting fees required for a show like Vampirina, the budget just balloons.
Because music is expensive.
Incredibly expensive. And we saw the consequences of this with Vampirina's sibling series, Electric Bloom, which was canceled abruptly due to low linear ratings.
Just to clarify for everyone real quick, when we say linear ratings, we mean traditional broadcast television, like people actually sitting down at a specific time to watch the Disney Channel as opposed to streaming it whenever they want.
Correct. And traditional broadcast viewership is shrinking fast. As these legacy series wrapped up or got canceled at the end of the 2025-2026 broadcast season, Vampirina Teenage Vampire emerged as the last active series, maintaining this decades-long shared continuity.
Wow, so if this one show fails, the entire interconnected universe, a universe that has been building since the early 2000s, basically goes dormant.
Exactly. It places a significant priority on the franchise for executive planners. They need it to survive to keep that ecosystem alive.
Which is a lot of pressure.
It is.
Okay.
Which leads us directly to the fascinating and highly controversial business strategies they are using to monetize the show in the streaming era.
Oh man, the digital retail tactics used for this show are wild. It caused absolute chaos online.
It really did. So the show utilizes a hybrid distribution model. It airs linearly on traditional television, and all 16 episodes of Season 1 were also dropped on Disney+. On those platforms, it is clearly categorized as a 16-episode first season.
Makes sense. But if you go to buy the show on PVOD platforms, premium video on demand, so places like Google Play or Amazon Prime Video, it's a totally different story.
Yeah, this is a strategy in digital marketing known as a retail volume split.
Okay.
Digital storefronts divided the single 16-episode production order into two halves. Episodes 1 through 8 are packaged and sold as Season 1, and episodes 9 through 16 are marketed and sold as Season 2.
At $2.99 an episode. Think about how infuriating that is as a consumer. You think you are buying a full season of television, but you are actually only getting half.
Right. But by splitting the season, the platform effectively doubles its transactional revenue from late-adopting consumers who buy the episodes individually or in blocks.
It's retail trickery. And it completely backfired in the fan community. Looking at the Reddit threads on r/Disney Channel, there was absolute panic.
Oh, total meltdown.
Right. Imagine scrolling through Amazon and suddenly seeing Season 2 being sold. Because there hadn't been an official press release about new episodes being filmed, the fans logically thought the show had been quietly canceled, and the network was just burning off the remaining episodes under a fake season title to make a quick buck.
And it is a very understandable assumption, given the purge we just discussed. I mean, when shows are being canceled left and right due to budget cuts, any irregularity in release schedules or retail pricing sparks immediate fear that the axe has fallen.
Oh, totally. But we have good news for the fans. The Reddit panic can officially end. According to Production Weekly, a real, actual Season 2 is officially happening. Filming started in May 2026.
Which is great. The strong digital streaming metrics seemingly outweigh the traditional broadcast ratings challenges. Showrunners Dan Cross and David Hoagie are back at the helm, and the production notes even give us details on the first 2 episodes.
Ooh, what are we looking at for Season 2?
So, Episode 201 is titled Second to Breathe, which focuses on Vee dealing with the aftermath of the finale and managing her unstable powers through her musical performances.
Nice.
And Episode 202 is called On Second Thought, Bro, written by Meg Deloach, which dives right back into the complicated relationship between Vee and Elijah, given their family's historical rivalry.
So the Van Helsing tension is far from over.
It's only just beginning.
Man, this whole deep dive really makes you look at these shows differently. We're not just looking at a fun, supernatural tween comedy. We're looking at a highly calculated piece of corporate media strategy designed to survive a massive industry contraction.
Yeah, it raises an important concept that I think is worth pondering long after this discussion ends. And that is the era of cradle-to-college media engineering.
Cradle to college. I like that term. What are the broader implications of that?
Well, we are living in an era where intellectual properties are no longer designed to simply entertain a specific demographic for a few years and then gracefully say goodbye. Right. They are being actively re-engineered to grow up right alongside you. The industry takes a childhood comfort character, someone who represented utter safety and simple moral lessons, and transforms them into a teenage avatar navigating complex modern anxieties like chronic illness, isolation, and identity.
It's wild to think about. The colorful character that helped you learn to tie your shoes is now helping you process the feeling of hiding who you really are from your peers. It's brilliant, but it's also a massive psychological shift in how we consume characters over a lifetime.
It is a fascinating thought experiment, analyzing the mechanics of taking something pure and introducing real existential stakes.
It really is. And for those of you watching us on YouTube, we want to hear from you in the comments below. If one of your favorite childhood preschool cartoons got a gritty, high-stakes teenage live-action reboot, what show would it be and what would the plot look like? Let us know.
I can't wait to read those.
Same. And while you're down there, be sure to like this video, drop your answers in the comment section, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a deep dive. So the next time you see a cuddly preschool mascot, just remember, give them 10 years and they might just be fighting off supernatural hunters, dealing with literal ticking clock, and carrying the weight of an entire corporate television universe on their shoulders. Until next time, thanks for joining us on the deep dive.